Hey, this is Josh for Retooled.net, and in this video we're going to be talking about the September 2017 new announcement at IBC with the updates to Premiere Pro. There are a lot of little things to talk about in this version of Premiere, and a few big ones. Now, I'm not going to be talking about everything. For instance, a lot of the updates have to do with VR headset playback and workflows, and I just have no way of testing that. I don't have a Windows system or an Oculus or any of the things I might need to test those things out, and honestly I haven't had the opportunity to create any VR content, so it's not of much interest to me, and I'm going to skip over that for people who know what they're talking about in that department. I'm going to talk first about some changes to the Essential Graphics panel. If I go into this timeline and I start creating some new graphics, I'm going to click on the Type tool and just type in the words the Leaning Tower and select that type, go over to the Essential Graphics panel and start editing. So of course, just like before, we can change the font, but you'll notice we have a preview of all of our installed fonts. So I should probably use Papyrus. No, I'm gonna use something else. Let's just pick this DIN Schrift font here, and I'm gonna set the color to black. Alright, so that's obviously more or less the same as it was before, other than of course the font menu. But let's say I want to have a box around the type. Again, same as before, I'm going to click on New Rectangle. I could also just select the Rectangle tool from my tools, and I'm going to make it the size of the text, drag it behind it. Now one thing you'll notice right away, if I lasso these, I can move them both at the same time now. But unfortunately, for whatever reason, I can't use the align tools when both are selected. Hopefully that will come at some point, but not quite yet. So right now I'm just going to use the center align tool on each one of them separately and select both of them. Actually, I'll just select the box, and I'm going to change it to be just a stroke around the outside of those words, and I'm going to change the color to black. Now, this is all more or less the same as it was, but there are a few new features. So let's say that I want to set this up as a template for someone else to edit, and I don't want them to have to edit the size of the box every time they change the words. I could select the shape and I can pin it to the text, the Leaning Tower, and just click here to pin it to all sides. And now watch what happens when I start editing that text. I'll go to the Text tool and change that text to the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and you'll notice the box is dynamically adjusting to the size of the text. And when I select the box, it can be selected on its own, but if I select the type, let me just click up here, the box will automatically follow it as well, kind of like a parenting relationship would do in After Effects. So that's cool. There are a lot of other ways that I could pin this as well. So let's say instead of pinning the type to the box, I want to do the opposite. So I'm just going to set that to video frame. So now I will just go to the text and pin that to the shape. So I'm going to pin it to the left edge of the shape now. So this time you'll see if I extend the box, it won't follow, but if I extend the left edge, it will, because I only pinned it to the left edge. Similarly, if I move the box, the text is just going to follow the left edge because I only pinned it to the left, not to the left top and bottom. So if I wanted to undo that, I can go back to the text, and this time I'll pin it to the left top and bottom. And now when I click on the box and move it, it will actually follow. But again, the right edge will be independent because I didn't do any pinning there. Now if I were to pin all of it, if I go back to the text, set it to pin all of it, and now you'll see if I just move the box around, it will follow even though just the box is selected, not the text. So there's a lot of possibilities here. Obviously there could be more features certainly still in the Essential Graphics panel, but it's some nice cool new things that you could do there. Now in addition, if I come in here, let's say I have an animation. So let's say now that it's pinned to the box, I want to set some keyframes. I'll go over to the Effects Control panel and I'll select the position, and I will just select the box over here and move it out of frame. Maybe it's easier if I do it this way. So I set an in point, and 10 frames later, I'll set a new keyframe for where I want it to land. Let's say it's there. And let's say for the outro, I come over here. And so this time I'm going to animate the scale. So I'm going to set a keyframe there, then I'll move these back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 frames. Go back to the end, and now I want both of these scaled to 0. So it will just animate on and then scale out, which is honestly doing some weird behavior with the pinning here. So that's something I'd have to figure out a little bit later. But I just want you to see how another new feature works, and that is the intro and outro feature. So if I come back to the Essential Graphics panel and I set an intro duration of 10 frames, because I know that's how long my keyframes are, and an outro duration of 10 frames, you'll see I have this lighter area represented on my timeline. So if I zoom in, you'll see this lighter area, and now when I trim my graphics layer, it's smart enough to maintain the animation even though I'm sort of trimming the layer shorter. It's not condensing that animation in any way. It's keeping that animation timing as it was. Obviously, as messed up as this one is, we'll figure that one out later. But that's how the new intro and outro feature works. The other cool new feature of the Essential Graphics panel is the roll feature. So if you select an Essential Graphics layer in your timeline and you don't have any layers selected, you'll notice a new option called roll. And if you just click it, well, you can just basically apply a roll to your clip. It'll respect all the other animation you had on top of it, and the cool thing is it will dynamically adjust to whatever the timing you have on your timeline. So as I extend my layer, it's slower. As I shorten my layer, it's way quicker. So it's really a nice, easy way to just animate from on-screen to off-screen. If I click back, you'll see I have some options. Start off-screen, end off-screen, pre-roll, post-roll, ease in, ease out. So a nice, simple way to create rolls without getting too overly complicated about anything. So let's move on to the biggest feature coming to Premiere Pro, and that is the ability to have multiple projects open at the same time. So if anyone's coming from the Final Cut 7 world, you've been wanting this for a long time, or at least I have. So let's see how it works. Obviously, there's a bunch of changes that needs to happen to the way Premiere thinks in order to accommodate this. So you'll notice I'm in a project called Main Edit, and if I go to File, Open Project, and I go to this project called Other Main Project and hit Open, you'll notice I have a new tab called Other Main Project, and my new sequences are here, my new footage bin is here, but I still have Main Edit open. So I have this sequence, Main Edit sequence. I can copy that and paste that over, and it will bring all of the associated clips it needs with it. So let me just undo that. I can also just take it, drag it onto that tab, wait for it to appear, and let go, and it will do the same thing. And notice that is a copy operation, not a move operation. It will not delete anything from the main project. Now that doesn't just apply to sequences. I'll just undo that. It applies to footage, of course, as well, audio, everything like that. So I could bring this whole bin over into Other Main Project, and here's the whole bin of footage, and I have it instantly in my other project. Now, how does it work in terms of the menus? There's a lot of considerations. So if we hit save, what happens? Well, if you just hit save, that's going to just save your active project. In this case, it's Other Main Project. But you'll notice there's a new option called Save All. So you could just get used to using that keyboard shortcut if that's the operation you want to do. Control-Command-S in this case, and it will save all of my open projects and whatever changes I've made to them. Autosave will automatically work on all open projects and will not worry about whether or not you've made changes to the project. It will just save all the open projects at whatever autosave increments you've set up. Now, how do you access the project? So for instance, if I X out of this window and go to Close Panel, well, if it was Final Cut 7, that would mean that project is closed. But it's not Final Cut 7. That project is still open. I just merely closed the project panel for it. So how do I get back to it? If I go to Window, Projects, you can see all of your open projects and open the project panels for them, of course. And I'll just go to Other Main Project and open that up. Now I'm going to just make a new sequence in here. So we could see, I'm going to call this Other Main Project Sequence. And you could see even if I were to close this project panel, that sequence can still be open. So again, both projects are still open. So if I go back to Window, Projects, Other Main Project, here it is again. If I actually want to close it, I go to File, Close. That will close the program, or File, Close Project will close just that project, and I will hit Save. So I only have my one project open. Let's open that other project up again. Other Main Project. So again, if you go to the File menu, you'll see all of the new options. There's Close Project, Close All Projects, Save All. And what happens when we go to, say, our project settings? So if you go to project settings, there's no selection of which project you're talking about. So we go to General, and you'll see there actually is. There's a new tab called Project, and you can basically change the project settings independent on each project. So if you see, I have Main Edit where I have my title safety set to 90% safety. If I go to Other Main Project, here it's set to 80% safety. So I can go through and change these out to the 90% rules. And now I have 90% safety in both projects. And you could, of course, have your different scratch disk, ingest settings, etc. associated with each project in your project panel settings. Now, if you go to Project Manager, that seems to only work on whatever project panel you have active. So if I go to Project Manager, you'll see Other Main Project Sequence. And if I go to this one and go to File, Project Manager, you'll see it is now referring to my main edit sequence. So that's how Project Manager works. So multiple open projects doesn't just stop at the ability to have more than one project open at a time. It actually includes a new feature called essentially subprojects. So if you notice in this project, I have a bin called subprojects. And if I click on it, it will open my subprojects. So now I essentially have 3 projects open. The reasoning for this is, let's say you're working on a film and the film has multiple reels or scenes, and you want each editor to be able to be working on their own reel, but also have access to the other reels that other people are working on. So this gets pretty involved. There are whole different states of locking, user settings, things along those lines, and there are different icon statuses that start to show you how that works. So let's just go back to my main edit bin, and you'll see that there is this main project subproject, and it has an icon on it. Essentially what this icon means is that this project is currently in use, but by this user. So if I were to go to that project and lock it, and then come back, so you'll notice that the icon has changed, and what this one means is that the project is not locked because essentially, well, it is locked for me and no one else has it open, which means no one is essentially editing this project right now. If I were to go over back to that project and unlock it, which means it's read-write, it's going to show the icon that says this project is locked but by this user, meaning it's in read-write mode for me. So if someone else were to show it, it would actually show a red lock icon instead of this green lock icon, which means this project is just locked and read only. So if you want to make more sub-projects, so let's say there's a new scene I want to add to the project and tell an assistant editor to open that up, I could go to File, New, Shared Project. I can also go to the New Item button and go to New Shared Project. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to hit Main Project, Sub Proj 2. And that will automatically open that project, and it's blank. If I go back to my main edit, you'll see I now have this other subproject. I will actually just drag that into my subprojects bin. And there's actually a new column here. If I go to Metadata Display and I search for the word locked, I'm going to add the project locked column to my metadata display. I'm going to hit tilde to make this full screen and just move the project lock column over. And you'll see both of those are being used essentially by my username. So to me, they are read and write, but to others, they would appear as locked. Now I could come into this new subproject and create a new sequence, hit OK, bring in some footage from any of my open projects, save this, and if there were another user that needed to refresh this project, they could. If I go back to my main project, there will be an option for them that says refresh all project, because for me, none of these projects are read-only. It's not going to show up. But if I was working in sort of a read-only project that someone else had open, I could refresh the current status of it. Again, I can't because I am currently the editor of that project. So there is a ton of power in project sharing here. Let me just show you how it's actually working on disk. So if I go over to Finder where my file is stored, here is my main edit. And you'll notice there's a new folder called Adobe Premiere Pro Shared Projects. And there's a main edit subfolder within it, and you'll see subproject 1, subproject 2. Those are just the names because that's what I decided to name them. They would just be called whatever. So again, if I go back to my main edit and I go to File, New, Shared Project, and I just make one called subproj 3, hit OK, and go back to Finder, you'll see there's a new project here called subproj 3. So what happens if you want a subproject within a subproject? Well, theoretically, you can do that too, no matter how confusing it may be for your team. I could go to File, New, Shared Project, and call this subproject. Hit OK. And now you'll notice there is a Adobe Premiere Pro Shared Projects folder within that folder, and here is my sub project, and there that is. Now if I go back quickly to the subject of project locking, aside from the whole sub-project notion, you do have a button to lock the current project. And if I click on it, you'll see that this project is now shown as locked in my project panel. Now the reason you would do that, well, let's say you've finished editing a project, but you still want it open so you could see all the assets. You just want another editor to be able to open it up and start making changes. You essentially now have the read-only version, and if you were to click it and unlock it, obviously it would give you a warning if another editor currently had it open. But again, I can't display that because it's just one system here that I'm demoing on. So there's a ton of power in this feature. Honestly, it's going to take the sort of advanced multi-user workflow to really get into it, but I think any user is really going to be able to get into having multiple projects open at once. Whether it's just taking an asset from an older version of your project or an older edit, or it's having different commercials that you're working on where you want to keep them in separate project files to keep the projects as clean as possible. I think this is going to be great for the average user, and it's something I'm super excited has finally made it over to Premiere. Be sure to check out our new product, Color Retooled, which is a set of looks presets for Premiere Pro CC. A ton of easy presets that you can use in Premiere and SpeedGrade CC to quickly edit the look of your clips. Everything from brightness and contrast to vintage effects to things like vignettes that editors can quickly add to their clips and keep working. Also check out Relink Retooled, our Conform tool for Premiere and Final Cut that will let you conform to your QuickTime media of different durations and file names than your original media. You can use it with combinations of tape name, file name, and of course you could use partial tape name and file name combined with metadata like timecode and frame rate to help you relink your clips quicker and easier than ever before.